Okay, so I'm going to show you a few methods to study. This will specifically be for English, but obviously you can use it for different subjects as well. In front of you can see a whole bunch of different tools that we're going to use. I have literally just raided my son's toys. We have some Lego people, stickers, highlighters, post-it notes, reusable palm cards, rubber band. This is a piece of A3 paper that I've laminated so it becomes a bit of a whiteboard. Study is not sitting in front of your computer and reading off your computer. That is useless. It's not going to help you, and it's also going to make you incredibly bored, which is not helpful either. For those of you who have your Ponder Realm folders, all of the information you should be using should already be in your booklets under your notes, so you should already have the notes to use and yet some study techniques as well. But we're going to go over some specific ones today to help you out that you should try and use if you can. Okay, so study. Studying is the process of taking a condensed cue that you have created and expanding it back out and reshaping it to fit different questions. It is not reading your notes. It is not rewriting your notes. These can be part of cue making processes, but it is not study. So if that's what you've been doing so far, you need to shift and change your method. Okay. So if I got to see you study, I shouldn't see a computer anywhere. Okay. You need to either have printed off everything, or you need to already have your cues cut down, so you don't need to do that and don't need a computer. Okay, so your brain works by making a cue. We all know that these things actually exist in everyday life. You hear a song that reminds you of a particular memory, or you can smell something and it takes you back to an event where you went to a concert, or you went out with your grandparents, or whatever the memory is. But we have all of these cues that exist. So your job when you're studying is to have made these cues already and to be recalling them as you're going to need to do in an exam. So let's try a few different methods. Now these may seem weird and strange, and you may be unwilling to give it a shot, but you might as well try because you haven't got anything to lose. Okay, so let's say in English I have to remember a specific set of quotes and techniques that I'm going to try to use and adapt to fit the question that I'm given, or to answer the question that I'm given. So I have some Crucible quotes here, and they're specifically about the character Paris, for those of you, Reverend Paris, for those of you who studied it. But I need to make these memorable. I need to make them worthy and have a cue in my head. So given that I really don't like Paris, he's not a very nice character, I'm going to use one of my monsters, and he's going to become a cue for Paris. And I think these all look too friendly and too nice. This guy down here, let's malign him a little bit and make him Paris. Okay. So, my monster Paris is going to be my cue for this one. My Lego man. Okay, so as the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside a bed. My first one I need to remember is that he's kneeling beside a bed. As the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside a bed. So my monster is next to a bed. You're about to see my terrible artistic abilities. Okay, there's the bed. And I need to remember that it's the opening stage direction. And then I'm going to talk about symbolism as well. Then, if you trafficked in spirits in the forest, surely my enemies will, and they'll ruin me with it. So then we've got a forest. And you can hear me verbalizing. If you trafficked with spirits in the forest, for surely my enemies will, and they'll ruin me with it. You will confess yourself, or I'll take you out and whip you to your death, Tituba. Sorry again. I'm going to put a tombstone. So what I'm doing right now is creating a visual representation for each of the quotes that I need to remember, to try to create some sort of cue in my brain that is not just word-based So in the exam, if I'm stuck, I can remember my monster and my visual cues that I have attached. So, cast the devil out, look him in the face, trample him, will save you. Alright, I have no idea how to draw a devil, but I'll give it a shot. Just going to give him sharp teeth. That's my devil. Always has a forked tail, doesn't he? Okay, so I have my quotes, I have my techniques. Now I'm attaching visual cues to each of the quotes that I need to remember, and I'm going to use this in what we're going to call the method of Loki. Now, the method of Loki is where you attach memories to a certain place in a particular sequence. So I'm going to get another piece of paper, and I'm going to once again draw terribly to be able to remember these things. Okay. So I'm going to get another monster. My monster is Paris. Okay, so Paris is here, and he starts. We're in just a place. Yeah. So in a house. And in the windows, I can see the bed. And I'm going to keep talking to myself as I do this. Say, as the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside the bed. And then I might I won't write it all out in full right now, but you would write the quote out in full. Okay, so in my house, in the bed, he's kneeling beside the bed. Then my monster takes a trek out to the forest. And if you trafficked with spirits in the forest, for surely my enemies will, they'll ruin me with it. And I keep verbalizing every time I do this. And then he's going to take a trip over to the graveyard with all the tombstones. And say, you will confess. Or I will take you out and whip you to your death, Tituba. Not a nice character at all. And he inevitably ends up with the devil, ironically given that. Okay, cast the devil out. Okay, so what I have here is my version of the method of Loki. I have my little monster who is now Paris in my head. There's Reverend Paris. And he is, as the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside the bed. And then my next quote is going to be about the forest. What's my forest quote? If you trafficked with spirits in the forest, for surely my enemies will, they'll ruin me with it. And then he treks himself over to the graveyard. Okay, and I think about, that's it, you will confess yourself, or I will take you out and whip you to your death, Tituba. And then we go down and he's having a go in the courthouse. Cast the devil out, look him in the face, trample him, we'll save you. And I do this repeatedly, and I write out the quote as I get there, and I start attaching that quote to the visual memory and moving around the page. Okay, this may seem a little bit ridiculous, but it is a proven method. You can look it up if you need to. Method of Loki, of locating a memory in a particular surrounding. Okay, and I'm creating these visual pictures, and I'm repeating them by drawing the picture, moving myself around it, and verbalizing the quotes that I need to remember at each point. I can then layer that particular memory with my techniques as well. Although, as far as techniques go, you can remember them by actually reading your quote and figuring it out again. So it shouldn't be too much of a difficult. Okay, so then I would write them in as well. And I'm going to pick a different colour and I'm going to write all over this. Opening stage direction is what I want to remember there. And I want to remember symbolism. Okay, you can make your own shorthand that you feel is going to work for this. And I would write this over and over. Okay, and I write them all in. So eventually I can get rid of all the writing and I can say, right, house, bed, Paris. So as the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside the bed. That's in the opening stage directions and it's symbolic of something. And I can practice an actual piece of analysis based on a question that I might be given. So this is one method called the method of Loki. Okay, so let's try another method, shall we? Right, I'll pick another set of quotes. So let's say I have to remember the infamous T.S. Eliot quotes, for those of you that have been given it. I'll use him for a couple of different ways of memorising, okay? First, I'm going to use my little men, okay? So literally you can use anything around your house as long as you are creating a cue that is memorable. Now, Duplo is memorable for me. Obviously, it's around the house everywhere. So I'm going to take my little man and I'm going to say that this is my Elliot. Okay, then I'm going to deface my son's Lego and say, well, he looks far too happy to be Elliot. Doesn't have any modernist angst going on there. I'm going to draw all over him, make him like a little sad somehow. Obviously, I'm not doing it with permanent pen because that would end badly. And I have, okay, my orange-hatted man, looking very proper and ready for work, is Elliot. And that might help me remember in the exam when I'm stuck, what did I do with Elliot? Okay. So Elliot's going to stay here. And Elliot's going to talk to us about the journey of the Magi. So the first one I have is a cold coming we had of it, the very dead of winter. So I'm going to start working on a very well-known mnemonic, which I'm sure you all use, which is an acronym. Okay, and I'll show you how we can do this. So, a cold coming we had of it. So I might start off with, so number 1, cold winter. The next quote that Mr. Eliot is talking to me about is, with voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. Voices, folly. My next quote that Mr. Eliot's talking to me about, finding the place, it was, you may say, satisfactory. I might go right place, and then my brackets, because this quote has some parentheses in it when you actually read the quote, that's what that's for. Satisfactory. And then my fourth one, we return to our places, no longer at ease here, with an alien people clutching their gods. Okay. This is a long one. So I might have these three things to. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the quotes that I have and I'm deciding which words in those quotes are salient to me as the person studying. Okay, I am attaching a visual and tactile image or thing to these particular quotes. Okay, and I'm having a look and I'm going, okay, so the first one, a cold coming we had of it, the very dead of winter. Cold and winter, particularly since my technique, it probably has something to do with pathetic fallacy, but cold and winter. And as I am studying, I will take the condensed version and then I will write it out again. So, a cold coming we had of it, the very dead of winter. And I would do this over and over, and then I would break it back down again. Cold, winter. Just like if I was doing the method of Loki, I'd break it back down just to the picture again. All right, and then I would expand it back out again. A cold coming we had of it, the very dead of winter. And I would keep going through each of these over and over, breaking it down. Cold, winter, voices, folly, place, parentheses, satisfactory, returned, no ease, no longer at ease, to an alien people clutching their gods. So condense, expand, condense, expand. So this is far more simple than the method of Loki. Okay, this may seem redundant, but I am actually attaching a visual image to these particular ideas. Okay, and I'm going from there. So that's another option that you can use. Now you can take something if you're a tactile person, such as a rubber band, okay, and use the same process with a rubber band. So I might go, okay, do something like this. I'm going to, it's a little bit fiddly, but that's okay. This one here, I'm going to put the C. Cold coming, winter, and I might do V for voices, place, and returned. And then I'm going to write out my cues. Cold and winter, voices and folly, place, satisfactory, and returned, no ease, alien. Okay, and I can scrunch it up until I can only see the this is very fiddly, if you like mucking around with things. So I can only see the actual letters first. Okay, I scrunch it up, and then when I need to have a look again, I can expand it out, scrunch it up again, get a bit of exercise while you're doing it, back and forward like this, so that you are expanding visually and physically if you're a tactile person and you need to do that. Okay. You can just muck around a bit as well. It'll help you get rid of some of nervous energy if you're not feeling particularly comfortable about things. So cold winter, and I say, right, a cold coming we had of it, the very dead of winter. Voices of folly, okay, with voices singing in our ears saying that this was all folly, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's another method of doing it. So if we want to mix it up again, I might go back to the crucible just to mix it up. I don't have enough of Elliot. I'm going to take my post-its. Okay, better put Elliot away because I don't want to attach him to any other memory. Okay, now post-its are, while delightful, you know, looking tagged down the side of your book, that's not study anymore, tagging something in a book. Okay, just like highlighting something is not studying. Okay, so what am I going to use these for? Well, I'm going to create my own little game because I'm sick of doing the same old study over and over and over. So I'm going to get my tags. Okay, I only need 4 because I've only got 4 quotes at this point. Okay, and I'm going to do this. So if I've already used my method of Loki and I just want to mix it up, I'm going to put my bed here. Okay, and this is as the curtain, and I write it out as the curtain rises. Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside the bed. Oh, I'm stuck to there. And I go my next one, my forest. Okay, if you trafficked, you can either write it out in full if you want to, or you can write bits and pieces. If you trafficked with spirits in the forest, for surely my enemies will. They will ruin me with it. Okay, then I had to go to a graveyard, didn't I? R.I.P. So, you will confess. Okay, and then it was my devil, which is getting worse each time I draw him. Okay, Cast the devil out. Okay. And I can do my own little flip book and I can sit here and flip through it if I need to. Or I can start playing a game. And I can go get myself a hat. And I can fold them up. Like this. And I can randomly pull one out. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. What this is? Okay, it's RIP. So that quote was, "You will confess yourself or I will take you out and whip you to your death, Tituba." All right, and I'm practicing. So what I'm doing is I'm testing myself now. Now I'm not just writing things out or reading things. I'm actually putting my brain in the same position that it's going to need to be in the exam, where it has to recall the information and take it out of long-term memory into short-term memory and adapt it to fit a new form. Another way you could do it is get yourself a question, pull one of these out of the hat and go, okay, how would I alter, or how could I use this as part of an argument to fit that particular question? We will go over how to answer questions in the next lesson that I will post up soon, okay? If these are all a little too wacky for you, you can go with a conventional study, palm cards. Now, with your palm cards, these are not to read from. That's useless, okay? They are to test yourself. So in this case, these are reusable. So luckily, I can get a whiteboard marker, okay? And I'll put a cue on the front of the card and I'll put the answer on the back of the card. So the cue can be either the techniques, if you like. So in this case, opening stage direction, if you want. And symbolism. But that means on the back, although I didn't think that one through, okay, you'd have the quote. Etc., etc. Okay, so if I'm studying now, I can work this two ways. Either way, I look at this side, opening stage direction and symbolism. Like, okay, which quote fits that? Which one is that? And I don't turn over until I've had a go at figuring out which quote it is. Let's say, as the curtain rises, Reverend Paris is discovered kneeling beside the bed. Alternatively, after you've done it, you make sure you check that you're right, okay? Alternatively, I start on the side with my quote, and I have to try and remember and test myself which techniques I was going to speak about. You're also going to put bits and pieces of your analysis around here as well to help yourself. But without the testing process, you're not putting your brain in the right context that you're going to ask it to be in an exam, and that will fall down sometimes when it comes time to actually recall the information. Okay, so studying is about making the cues that you have in your brain transform into a new form, okay, and doing so without as complete aids in front of you. So a condensed form of what you need to remember and testing yourself to bring it back out into full volition. Okay, all right, so that's a quick lesson on some different study techniques. I know there is a lot to do for English, so you hopefully have already started. You cannot study at all if you don't have notes, and the notion that you cannot study for English is rubbish. It just requires you to be a little more creative and perhaps even a little more dedicated to what you're being asked to do, because it can get a little overwhelming. But in summary, use as many different techniques as you can. Use colour, use pictures, use stickers, use Lego people. I now have Elliot to talk to me. I have my little monster that is Paris. I have Elliot, who I would change his face to make him sad because he's a modernist, and that's how I perceive them. We have different pictures, so I have Method of Loki, moving around a setting. Okay, we have condensing it down to shorter cues that can eventually become acronyms and then expanding it back out again. We have testing yourself with palm cards. You have testing yourself with little tabs, also creating flip books, whatever it is that is going to best fit your method of study. But simply reading and writing essays in full out is not going to be useful, particularly when it comes to adapting to fit different questions. So be as creative as possible. If you need some more help with this, just get in contact and I'll help you out as much as possible. All right, tune in next for the lesson on how to answer different questions. Bye.